Jesus' mother was there. And Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine had given out, Jesus' mother said to him, "They are out of wine."
Madam, what do you have to do with this? My time has not yet come.
Do whatever he tells you.
The Jews have rules about ritual washing, and for this purpose 6 stone water jars were there, each one large enough to hold between 20 and 30 gallons.
Fill these jars with water.
They filled them to the brim.
Now draw some water out and take it to the man in charge of the feast.
They took him the water, which now had turned into wine, and he tasted it. He did not know where this wine had come from, but of course the servants who had drawn out the water knew. So he called the bridegroom.
Everyone else serves the best wine first, and after the guests have drunk a lot, he serves the ordinary wine. But you have kept the best wine until now.
After some time, Jacob sent Joseph to the pasture land of Dothan, where the older brothers had taken Jacob's flocks of sheep to graze. Eager to see his brothers, Joseph made the long journey from Hebron, looking forward to some happy greetings from them. But when the brothers saw him coming, they began to plot against him.
Look, here comes the dreamer. Let's kill him and throw him into one of the pits.
Then we can say that a wild animal has killed him.
And we'll see what becomes of his dream. Go!
When Joseph came to them, they jumped on him and tore off the long robe he was wearing. Ignoring his cries of protest and his struggling, they forcefully dragged him and finally let him down into the empty pit. Then they made ready to sit down and eat, paying no attention to Joseph's pleas for mercy. Unaware of the fate awaiting him, Joseph was glad to be brought out of the pit. But when he heard the bargaining which was taking place between the Ishmaelite trader and his brothers, he soon realized that they were selling him into slavery for a measly 20 pieces of silver. Torn from his father's home and sold as a slave by his brothers, Joseph was left with but one hope and comfort: God, in whom he trusted. But as in the past, so also in slavery, God was with Joseph. He was sold to a kind and wealthy Egyptian named Potiphar. who was an officer of Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt. And when Potiphar saw how faithful and honest Joseph was, and how the Lord was with him and blessed him in everything that he did, he made Joseph the overseer of his house and all that he possessed. And on account of Joseph, the Lord blessed everything that Potiphar had. But before long, Potiphar's wife tempted Joseph to sin with her. And when he would not agree to any of her evil suggestions, she plotted how to get revenge. So when she told her husband lies about Joseph, Potiphar believed her and ordered Joseph to be thrown into prison. This was unjust punishment. But Joseph remembered how God had brought him through other misfortunes, and he continued to trust in God's plans for him. Also in prison, the Lord was with Joseph. Soon the prison keeper put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners. Then one day, Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, was greatly troubled. No one, not even the wisest men of the country, could tell him the meaning of two strange dreams he had had during the previous night. He called in all the magicians of Egypt, but there were none who could tell Pharaoh what the dreams meant. At last, the butler remembered Joseph and hurried to tell Pharaoh about the young Hebrew prisoner who had accurately interpreted his dream. So Pharaoh sent for Joseph at once. Joseph, freshly shaven and dressed in clean clothes, was quickly brought before the king.
I have heard that when you hear a dream, you can tell what it means.
No, I do not have such power at all. But God will give Pharaoh an answer that will help him.
I told my dreams to the magicians, but no one could tell me what they mean.
Pharaoh's dreams mean only one thing. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. You see that the 2 dreams have the same meaning. The 7 lean and ugly cows and the 7 empty ears mean 7 bad years, 7 years of famine. It is as I told Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do.
Can we find a man with the Spirit of God in him, like this man? Since God has shown you all this, there is no one so wise and understanding as you are. You will be in charge of my palace, and all of my people shall do as you command. Only as regards the throne will I be greater than you. You see, I am putting you in charge of all Egypt.
So at last, God's purpose in bringing Joseph down into Egypt was becoming clear. Overnight, this God-fearing young man had risen from prisoner to prime minister, from slave to second in command of all Egypt. And now he began to see how God had chosen him to save many people from death by starvation, perhaps also his own people. And God had an even greater purpose than bringing Joseph to a position of leadership in Egypt. He was preparing for himself a people from whom the Messiah was to come.
come to collect your husband's debt. We've waited long enough. Woman! Answer me! We have come for your husband's debt. Pay it. All of it.
My husband is dead. And I have nothing. What are you doing? Please.
How old are you?
No. 13.
They will do well in my fields. Both of them. 3 days. If you do not pay all of it, I'll take both your sons. I'll be back soon.
Elisha!
Hello.
Your servant, my husband, is dead.
I know.
You know he feared the Lord, and that he was known among the prophets. Now, his creditors, they want to come and take my children as his slaves.
What do you have?
What?
What do you have in your house?
I have nothing.
What do you have?
Nothing. Except a little oil.
Bring it to me. Go to your neighbors and get all their empty jars. Get as many as you can carry and bring it here. Pour the oil into the empty jars. When each is filled, put it to the side. Get all you can carry.
I need another jar. Hurry. Hurry, I need another jar. Give me another jar. But there are no more. Elisha, we did as you said, and...
Go sell your oil and pay your debts. And you and your sons live on the rest.
Thank you. Thank you.
For 10 years, Naomi, an Israelite from Judea, had lived in the land of Moab. She had come to this land with her husband Elimelech and their 2 sons because of a famine in Judea. Not long after their arrival, Elimelech had died. Then her sons had married 2 young women of Moab, Orpah and Ruth. Not long after their marriage, Naomi's 2 sons also had died, and now she was preparing to return to Judea because she had heard that the Lord was again giving her people plenty of food, and she wanted to be back in her homeland. Ruth and Orpah planned to go along with Naomi, for both girls loved their mother-in-law. She had always been kind to them and had taught them to worship the true God instead of the idols of the Moabites. So the 3 of them got ready for the journey to Bethlehem. But before they had gone very far, Naomi came to a decision. Why should her daughters-in-law leave their own country? Perhaps the people in Bethlehem would not welcome them, being widows and foreigners. And so Naomi spoke to them.
Please go back, both of you, to your own homes. And may the Lord be kind to you as you were to the dead and to me. And may he give each of you a good home. Your sister-in-law is going back to her people. Go with her.
Don't ask me to leave you. Wherever you go, I want to go. And where you stay, I want to stay. Your people shall be my people. And your God, my God. I want to die where you die. And there I'll be buried. May the Lord punish me if I let anything but death come between us.
When Naomi realized how deeply Ruth loved her, she thanked God for having given her such a loyal daughter to help make up for the loss of her husband and 2 sons. So Ruth and Naomi continued on their journey. When the women came to the land of Canaan, Naomi was glad to be back in her homeland again.
This is the country which the eternal God promised to Abraham and his descendants.
It's now my country, too.
In order to find food for herself and Naomi, Ruth went out to the barley fields. For in those days, it was the custom of Hebrew landowners to leave some stalks of grain for the poor people to gather. Now the field where Ruth gathered grain was one belonging to a man named Boaz. And when he came out to his field and saw her there, he asked his overseer about her.
Who is this young woman?
She's the one who came back with Naomi from Moab. She said, "Please let me gather grain from the sheaves." And she's been working from early morning until now.
Ruth had seen Boaz at the edge of the field and had decided who he was because of his fine clothes and the way he spoke with the overseer. Now Boaz walked over to her.
Don't go and gather grain in any other field. You may stay in this one. Stay with my women workers. When you are thirsty, go to the water jars and drink.
Why are you so kind to me, a foreigner?
I've heard of all you've done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your mother and your father and the country where you were born and came to a people you did not know.
உன் செய்கைக்கு தக்க பலனை கர்த்தர் உனக்கு கட்டளையிடுவாராக. இஸ்ரவேலின் தேவனாகிய கர்த்தருடைய செட்டைகளின் கீழ் அடைக்கலமாய் வந்த உனக்கு அவராலே நிறைவான பலன் கிடைப்பதாக.